I'm Brice McIver. I normally attended the 11 o'clock service. I'm involved in the chancel choir and occasionally a liturgist and whatever else needs to be done.
Good morning. My name is Shannon Tefft. My family and I usually attend the 9:30 service, but we can also be found at the 11 o'clock service depending on the week. I am a part of the Staff Parish Relations Committee, and I like to volunteer in Kids Connection, especially the preschool. And I also like serving communion occasionally when the time fits.
I'm Jacob. I'm Ben.
So worship for our family is all about a time of connection, connection with each other, connection with our friends, connection with God. It's just a time to kind of slow things down and just reconnect. And then Sunday's always been our family time together. And so I think worship fits really well into that's something that we do collectively together. And it's our time to really focus on what's important, focus on God, how he's going to impact our week, and just kind of remind the kids of what's important in life.
A chance to charge my battery for the week. It's like a chance for me to renew myself, to sort of center myself and put off the chaos of the week and just sit and listen. And back when we were in service, being able to sing and meet people and just to let that worship experience sort of help renew me.
So I'm a big planner. So usually my calendar's planned 6 months out. So March 13th, we hit kind of an abrupt stop, and our calendar cleared, except for Sundays. So Sunday, we still had church on our calendar, and that got me through kind of the downs of the pandemic, knowing that I had that time to look forward to every Sunday to reconnect with my family again, reconnect with my church family, even though it was virtual.
When I first came to St. Paul's, the kids were always in Sunday school during church. So it was really just me there in church and being able to sort of focus on the service as a whole. And then we switched to where the 11 o'clock didn't have Sunday school, and then having the kids with me there. And at first it was very difficult to because they weren't used to sitting still, and I wasn't used to having to try and keep them still during the service. But again, we sort of fell into a routine there that when I had them there with me, that it was just a good chance for me to sit with them and have my arm around them and look at whatever drawings they were doing with their crayons and colored pencils during church. And it ended up being a good experience to have them there with me.
Usually we gather around the computer, and some of us are still in our PJs, some of us have eaten breakfast, some of us may not have brushed our teeth yet for the day, but we're all able to at least gather in the living room together. One of the kids is usually responsible for getting the candle for that part in worship, and the other kid is usually responsible for getting communion ready if it's a communion week. Sometimes they get their Bibles, sometimes they don't.
And I'm still not sure if they get a lot out of that, or I think a lot of times they still are just sort of like, oh, why do we have to be here, and why do you make us sit and draw for an hour? But I'm hoping that just the experience of being surrounded by people, well, back when we were surrounded by people, sort of brings them in over time.
Yeah, so I grew up going to church every Sunday, but it was more memorizing Bible verses, memorizing stories from the Bible. And I'd say, I don't know, a couple of years ago, just sitting in worship, and I was finally at a point in my life where I could apply all of those memorizations to real life. And that's when it really became impactful for me. So I wasn't just leaving Sunday like, oh, I've memorized, Psalms 23, and I'm done for the day. It was actually taking what I had learned from a message from that time, or from that hour in church, and being able to apply it to my real life, to the rest of my week. Whatever that message, it may come up a month later that I'm like, oh, now that makes sense from what I learned from what I heard in church a month ago. So I think that's when it really became something that I wanted to go do every week, rather than something that I felt like I had to go do every week.
Almost every week, like I'll hear something I haven't heard before, or I'll hear a passage covered in a way that I hadn't thought about before. And so, I mean, I'd like to say that it's almost every week there's something I pick up that's like, I just hadn't thought about things that way before, or, I'd heard that passage and I'd heard people preach on it before, but this time there was a little different twist to it.
I think that people of St. Paul's have really, you can see God in them, and in various ways, right? So I see it in the kids in preschool when I'm helping teach Kids Connection. Just they're so innocent, but the things they say and the things they ask, you see it in, Pastor Laura, Pastor Sandra, Pastor Mike. You see it in the people that sit next to you in the pew at church, and you finally realize that, hey, they're part of the church community, but they're also part of your school community. And the kids get excited because they're like, oh, I know that person from karate. So just to know that the people of St. Paul's are God's people, and that they're making an impact in your community is pretty cool.
The music is probably my favorite way of experiencing God. Like it just fills me. And I had been missing that for so long. And joining the choir, like it gave me a stronger connection to the church than I had in a long time.
I remember a couple of years ago, Pastor David saying how important weekly worship was. And I was like, I can't fit that into my week. I have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and you want me to worship an hour every Sunday morning? Like that's unfathomable. But now that that's something that we've put into our weekly practice, I get so much more of a break than an hour mentally, because I clear my mind, I reconnect, I calm myself down from, what do I need to do next, all of that in my life, that my Sunday is so much more productive, and the rest of my week really, by just taking that 1 hour and, committing that time to God and to my family and to myself, that it's not just finding an hour of your time, because you gain so much more from it.